The bus dropped Emily off at the edge of Hollow Creek just as the last light of day surrendered to the horizon. The village looked like a forgotten stain on the world, its crooked houses leaning against each other as though too tired to stand alone. Mist crept along the cobblestone streets, wrapping the town in a suffocating shroud that smelled faintly of damp, wood and something rotten beneath. Emily tightened her coat, clutching the handle of her small suitcase. She had traveled hours to reach this place, following the trail of her late grandmother's letters, cryptic writings filled with warnings, confessions, and strange symbols she had never understood. The last letter ended abruptly, as if her grandmother had stopped mid-sentence. The single surviving line read, "The shadows are listening. Do not let them see your eyes." A flickering lamp buzzed overhead, casting sickly yellow light on the empty square. The silence was unnatural, no children laughing, no dogs barking, not even the whisper of a breeze. The town was frozen, as if the air itself had been strangled. Emily's footsteps echoed louder than they should have, bouncing back from unseen corners. At the far end of the square, she saw the inn. Its sign dangled loosely, creaking with each shift of the mist. The paint was peeling, the letters nearly illegible, the hollow rest. She felt no comfort in the name. Still, it was the only place offering shelter. Inside, the lobby was dim, lit only by a single candle on the counter. Behind it stood an old woman with eyes clouded by cataracts. She smiled, or at least stretched her lips in an attempt at one. "We don't get visitors," the woman said, her voice like crumpled paper. "Not anymore." Emily placed the key money on the counter, eager to end the conversation. But before the woman handed over the key, she leaned closer. "Do not look at them directly," she whispered, her breath sour and heavy. "If you hear them outside, keep your head low." Confused and unsettled, Emily carried her suitcase upstairs. The hallway smelled of mildew and iron. Every step on the wooden floor groaned like a cry for help. Her room was small, with cracked wallpaper and a window overlooking the town square. The mist below seemed thicker now, swirling unnaturally as if it had purpose. She tried to sleep, but the silence pressed against her ears. At midnight, a sound broke at a soft tapping at the window. She froze. The window pane quivered slightly as if touched by unseen fingers. Slowly, she turned her head. There, in the mist, stood a figure. Its shape was human, but wrong. Its limbs were too long, its neck craned at an unnatural angle, and where its face should have been was only shadow. She pulled the blanket to her chin, refusing to blink. The figure tapped again, tilting its head, as though studying her. The old woman's words echoed, "Don't let them see your eyes." Emily barely slept. When the pale light of dawn spilled through the window, she dared to peek outside. The mist had receded slightly, but its residue clung to the cobblestones like ash. The words smeared on the glass had vanished, leaving only streaks as though someone had wiped them away with a trembling hand. She dressed quickly and went downstairs. The old woman at the counter was gone, replaced by a man with skin stretched tight across his skull. He offered no greeting, only staring as Emily walked past him toward the exit. She needed answers. The square was emptier than the night before. A few villagers moved about, their heads bowed, avoiding eye contact. Their clothes were worn, colors washed out to a uniform gray. One man carried a basket, but it was empty, as though he had forgotten what it was for. Emily followed the street toward her grandmother's house, guided only by vague directions from the letters. Every building she passed seemed wrong. Windows boarded, doors bolted, but whispers slipped through cracks in the walls. At first, she thought it was the wind, but the voices carried words. "We see you." She froze, pressing her back against the cold stone wall. The whisper was close, just beyond her ear. When she turned, no one was there. The wall itself seemed to breathe, faint patterns in the brick shifting like veins beneath skin. She stumbled back, colliding with a man in a dark coat. His eyes were black, not in color, but in emptiness, as though pupils and irises had been consumed. He gripped her wrist, nails digging into her flesh. "You should not be here," he hissed, his voice carrying two tones at once, human and something inhuman echoing beneath. Emily yanked free and ran. The streets twisted unnaturally, as though the village shifted behind her back. She turned a corner and nearly collapsed when she saw it. Her grandmother's house. Its roof sagged, its windows dark, but it stood apart, defiant against the encroaching decay. Inside, the air was colder than outside. Dust hung in the light like suspended ash. Furniture was covered in white sheets, but beneath them shapes bulged tall, too bent to be chairs or tables. She reached for one, her hand trembling, then stopped. The sheet moved on its own, rising as if something beneath it took a breath. Emily stumbled backward, knocking over a framed picture. The glass shattered, and the sound echoed unnaturally long, reverberating through the entire house. From the walls came whispers again, louder, frantic. Emily avoided the broken shards, her gaze fixed on the grinning reflection that no longer moved with her. Shivers crawled along her spine, but she forced herself to continue exploring the house. She had come for answers, and she couldn't leave until she found them. The hallway stretched longer than it should, doors lining each side, most sealed shut with heavy locks. She passed them quickly, the silence pressing against her. But one door, at the very end, rattled faintly as though something inside shifted against it. She hesitated, hand trembling as she reached for the knob. It was cold unnaturally so. The instant her skin touched the metal, whispers surged from every direction, crowding her mind. "Don't open it. Don't look. Don't let it out." Emily yanked her hand back, heart pounding. But curiosity gnawed at her fear. She needed to know what was being kept here. With trembling determination, she searched the drawers in a nearby room until she found a rusted key. The lock resisted, screeching as though protesting. When the door finally gave way, darkness seeped out like liquid shadow. The room beyond had no windows, no furniture, just walls covered in strange, carving symbols that twisted the longer she looked at them. And in the center, chained to the floor, was a chair. Emily stepped closer. On the seat lay her grandmother's rosary, the silver cross blackened as if burned. The moment she touched it, the chains rattled violently, as though something invisible was still bound there. A voice filled the room, not from the walls this time, but from everywhere at once. "You should not have come." Emily spun, but the doorway had vanished. The room sealed itself, the carvings glowing faintly. The chains strained, clanging as if something monstrous pulled against them. The air grew heavy, pressing down on her chest, stealing her breath. She clutched the rosary, whispering her grandmother's name, hoping for comfort. Instead, the carvings bled. Black liquid seeped from the walls, thick and foul, spreading across the floor toward her shoes. The chains snapped. A shape began to rise from the chair formless. A mass of shifting darkness with dozens of glinting eyes opening all at once. They fixed on Emily, unblinking, hungry. The rosary burned her palm, glowing faintly. She raised it instinctively, the only shield she had. The creature recoiled slightly, but its eyes never left her. The whispers outside the room screamed in unison. "Do not let them see your eyes." Emily shut her eyes tight as the floor shook beneath her. The black liquid reached her ankles, burning like ice. She stumbled backward, praying the rosary's light would hold. When she dared to open her eyes again, she was no longer in the locked room. She stood in the hallway, the door behind her sealed once more. The key lay melted in her hand, its metal dripping between her fingers. But the whispers did not stop. They followed her. Emily stumbled through the hall, clutching the rosary, her breath ragged. She could still feel the creature's eyes burning into her memory, hundreds of them, following her even in the safety of the corridor. The house no longer felt empty. Every corner seemed occupied by something unseen, every shadow alive. She tried to leave, But each door she opened only led to another room of the house. It was as though the building had reshaped itself into a maze designed to trap her. Whispers grew louder the deeper she went. They weren't warning her now. They were mocking, laughing. She entered what looked like a dining room. The long table was set with dishes that had not seen use in decades. Yet the silverware gleamed as though freshly polished. Dust floated in the air, but not on the plates. And then, the chairs pulled back, one by one, as if invisible guests had arrived. Emily froze. Shadows stretched across the table, forming faint outlines of bodies that had no substance, yet carried weight in the air. They sat at the table, a dozen of them, their heads all slowly turning toward her. The whispers stopped. Silence pressed down, thick and unbearable. Then, the figure at the head of the table spoke, its voice like stone grinding against stone. "You carry what does not belong to you." Emily looked down at the rosary. It pulsed faintly, as though alive. She held it tighter. "This was my grandmother's." The shadow leaned forward. "She bargained with us. She broke the circle. Now you are here in her place." Emily's blood turned to ice. She shook her head. "I don't understand." The figures rose from their chairs, their forms lengthening, stretching unnaturally tall until their heads scraped the ceiling. Their faces, or what passed for them, were pits of darkness. But from within, she saw pale hands clawing to get out. Emily backed toward the door. The shadows followed, their elongated arms reaching across the room, fingers sharp and skeletal. She pressed the rosary outward, and its glow expanded, burning into the shadows like fire. The figures shrieked, recoiling, their forms distorting. She ran, bursting through the door into another hallway, the echo of their screams trailing behind her. The house twisted again. She found herself back at the staircase, though she was sure she had been going deeper. The innkeeper's words returned to her. "Keep your head low. Do not look at them." Emily descended the stairs, gripping the railing, but the whispers returned. This time, they weren't warning her. They were chanting her name. "Emily, Emily, Emily." At the bottom of the stairs, the front door stood wide open, fog spilling inside. For a moment, hope surged in her chest. Escape. But standing in the doorway were three figures taller, sharper, clearer than the others. Visitors waiting, their heads tilted in unison, and though they had no eyes, Emily knew they were staring at us. The rosary flickered. Its light was dying. The three visitors in the doorway did not move, but their presence filled the room like suffocating smoke. Emily's chest tightened, her lungs begging for air. The rosary flickered weakly, its glow no stronger than a dying ember. She stepped back, but the front door slammed shut. The fog inside thickened, swallowing the light. A low hum resonated in her skull, not sound, but vibration, as if her bones were tuning forks struck by unseen hands. The visitors spoke together, their voices layering in impossible harmony. "Your grandmother promised herself. She could not finish the offering. You will complete it." Emily shook her head, clutching the rosary to her chest. "No, I'm not part of this." They tilted their heads in unison, necks bending far beyond human limits. "Blood remembers. You are hers. The pact binds you." Emily turned and bolted up the staircase, the house groaning as though alive. Walls closed in, floors shifted. Every door slammed before she could reach it. Finally, she burst into the attic, coughing on dust and decay. In the center sat a chest, old and bound in iron. She knew, without reason, that her grandmother's final secrets lay inside. She wrenched it open, revealing brittle papers covered in frantic handwriting. The last page made her blood run cold. To keep them at bay, one must give sight. One must blind the eyes that they crave. The visitors ascended the stairs, their footsteps slow but unrelenting. Shadows stretched beneath the door, reaching like fingers. Emily's hands shook as she gripped the rosary. The carvings on the walls, the whispers. Her grandmother's warnings, all of it pointed to this moment. She looked at the small shard of broken glass still in her pocket. taken unconsciously from the shattered picture frame. Her reflection had smiled in it, as though mocking what she must do. Tears stung her eyes as she realized the truth. They wanted her sight. Her grandmother had refused to finish the ritual. That was why the creatures hunted her bloodline. The door creaked. The visitors were inside now, their elongated arms brushing the rafters. Their faces leaned close, pits of darkness searching for her gaze. Emily raised the shard, pressing it dangerously close to her eye. Her voice shook. "If you want me, you'll have to watch me end it myself." The visitors froze. For the first time, they hesitated. The rosary fled, light bursting from the cross, burning their forms into smoke. Their whispers turned to screams. Emily dropped the shard, falling to her knees, sobbing. The light from the rosary filled the attic, pushing back the fog, until the creatures vanished into nothingness. But she knew it wasn't over. The pact was still written in her blood. The attic was silent, save for Emily's ragged breaths. The visitors were gone, their shadows burned away by the rosary's light. But the house still trembled, alive with the remnants of the pact. Emily crawled to the chest, flipping through the brittle papers with desperate fingers. The writings were her grandmother's pleas, warnings, half-completed rituals. One line repeated again and again, scratched into the margins as though carved by madness. "If they take your sight, they take your soul. If you blind yourself, you blind them." The rosary dimmed in her hand. The glow was fading faster now, the chain burning against her palm like it rejected her. Her grandmother had tried to resist, but in the end, she had left the curse unfinished. Now Emily bore it. The house groaned, the beams above her head splitting, slightly as if something massive pressed against the roof. Dust fell in lazy streams. Whispers surged once more, no longer in warning, but in triumphant hunger. She sees, she sees, she sees. Emily stumbled down the attic stairs, clutching the papers, her chest tight with panic. The house walked around her walls stretching, floors bending, doors leading to nowhere. Every corner she turned revealed figures in the mist, their bodies pressed against the windows from the outside, faceless heads turning to follow her. At last, she collapsed in the living room, the rosary clattering onto the floor. It no longer glowed. The visitors returned, dozens of them slipping from the walls, rising from the mist seeping through the cracks. Their elongated limbs stretched, filling the room. They formed a circle around her, their faceless voids staring with unbearable intensity. Emily raised the shard of glass once more. Her hands shook violently, tears streaming down her face. "You won't have me," she whispered, voice cracking. The visitors leaned closer, mouths opening in unison. From their darkness, she saw glimpses of her grandmother, screaming silently, hands pressed against the void as though trapped within them. Emily pressed the glass to her eye. The whisper screamed in rage, the sound shaking the floorboards. Her vision blurred with tears, then sharpened for one last moment as she saw the truth. The visitors were not strangers. They were the villagers. Hollow Creek itself had been consumed long ago, their souls bound to the pact. Her grandmother had tried to blind herself, but failed. Emily could not fail. With a sob, she pushed the glass in. Pain flared white, and the visitors shrieked, retreating as the connection severed. The pact broke. The rosary blazed with holy fire, incinerating the shadows until nothing but smoke remained. Emily collapsed onto the floor, clutching the rosary to her chest, blood streaking her face. Her vision was gone, darkness eternal, but the whispers had ended. The house groaned one final time, then stilled. Hollow Creek fell silent. Outside, the mist began to fade.